Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Engine Shed. I am so happy to be back, and I am very sorry it has taken me so goddamn long. I owe you an explanation. I'm more than happy to give that to you. So, the last video I put up, I think, was later than that, November last year, and I have not been a very active part of YouTube for an extended period of time. Put simply, I started working for a new company, engineering company, and that has pretty simply taken up the core part of my focus for the last 6 months. So for those of you who stuck by, thank you very much. So far as I know, the channel's over 500 subs, so woo. What are we going to do? Well, today we're going to look at something really special. It's a pretty well covered topic on YouTube, but you know, as always, I like to cover things in my own way and show people the more intimate side of the technology, just to sort of get rid of that MacGuffin about the whole DCC process. So today we're looking at Cobalt IP digital point motors. What do they look like? Something a little bit like that. What do they do? Well, they're point motors. Why are they special? Because they're digital. Now, this is a product DCC Concepts has had for a while. DCC Concepts, of course, I'm not really a fanboy, but I really do like their products, and when they do a product well, they do it really well. Of course, this channel has featured in the past the ADS 8FX and the ADS 8SX decoders. So those are the solenoid accessory decoders. That's been pretty well documented. I have both a love and a hate relationship with both of those products. But the newer ADS 8SX units are pretty reliable from what I've basically experienced in the last 2 years that I've been using them, more so than the originals. Now, why did I get these? Well, put simply, supply for those 8SX units has been very limited lately, so I had to find another solution because some of the older point decoders were starting to fail, and I was getting reliability issues with the frog polarity switches on them, and it wasn't acceptable for me. So in order to get the layout running and functioning as I wanted to, I needed to find a new solution, and these Cobalt points turned out to be a pretty good choice. Dollar per unit, you're looking at about 30 bucks for one of these things, and you know, you can buy them in bulk, which is a big plus. Now, obviously, historically, for those that know, this layout has over 70 points on it. I'm always adding more, which is not a good thing, but needless to say, it's a hell of a thing to operate and maintain more than 20 points, even 70 points. I mean, my God, what was I thinking? But needless to say, the whole point of DCC is to make this process easier, and I can honestly tell you, sometimes that's not the case. So this product promises to deliver simplicity with DCC. Let's find out. So let's open up the box and see what we get. Alright, welcome back. So here we have the Cobalt IP digital slow action point motor, I guess is the way to describe these things. If you've ever used tortoise point motors, they're like that but smaller. Now, the tortoise point motors are legendary among model railroading communities because of their incredible reliability and their very versatile applications, but this is just a little bit better because it integrates the digital element. So obviously everyone knows that this is a digital layout. I mean, you can see just over there I've got the ESU still, the ECOS unit, and that is in its own right very sufficient. So we open up the box, we've got 12 individual IP digital point motors. Now, the reason they're called digital is because this effectively is a point motor with its own decoder, which is fantastic because it's going to save me a lot of wiring and a lot of heartache. So we just open one of these up. Very nice little packaging. It's always neat and tidy with DCC Concepts. And there we have it, a point motor unit. Alright, so on first inspection, probably no bigger than I'd say a boiled egg, to be perfectly honest. It's really not that much bigger than a boiled egg, which is really good because one of the things that turned me off these originally was the space you need underneath the table. So if you've got a junction, having two of these side by side might not be the most convenient thing to do. So, and this is the other thing that just really impresses me. You can see here, hopefully the camera focuses, I'm sorry. Oh, come on, you bastard, what are you doing? There we go, alright. So you can see here we've got some quick crimp terminals. I gotta be honest, this is gonna save me so much time in the future if I use these extensively. Everything is labelled as well, which is a huge plus because it means there's very little chance, if you read the instructions, which I recommend everyone does, that you stuff it up. So don't stuff it up, because it's really important that you wire these things properly, or you're going to be on a very, very expensive bill. So you can see here they're just little quick release, sort of like crimp connectors. Everything's very well labelled, everything's very neatly organised. What's this? Switch running, so that would be for a manual override. We're not going to use that, so we're going to just leave that alone. But yeah, very, very surprising small package. So as I mentioned, the idea with this is all you need is, I think it's 5 wires. So you've got the DC in, red and black, whatever you tend to use are the first two. You've got a frog, and then you've got the left and the right polarity wire. So 5 wires, 2 to power the unit, 3 to the actual point itself if you're using electrofrog. If you're not, you don't even need to use that, you just need the 2 DCC wires. So even easier than that altogether. So that's really impressive, a small little package. I'm assuming that there is some extra hardware because it looks like there is a point blade that needs to be attached to that, so let's just have a look. Okay, alright, here we go. So, as expected, we get some silencing foam pads, some double-sided tape foam pads for you to stick under your baseboard, just to sort of dampen the vibration and the sound, so that's really, really good. What else have we got? And yeah, okay, so here we go. We've got all the screws, which is, seriously, that's really impressive for a company to include screws at all these days. It's just a huge bonus. And we've got the rods and blades in there that'll switch the points overall. So really impressive stuff. Cost, right, so the cost of this particular unit, it was $415 retail, recommended retail. After I spoke to Simon from Simon Says Hobbies, he was really, really great, and I'll put his details up on the video. So my Australian viewers, especially if you want to check out Simon at Simon Says Hobbies, really, really good guy, genuine article, definitely does the extra mile to help you out, especially if you're looking after a specific thing. So he gave me 10% off on these, and this is the thing everyone should understand. If you support your local hobby store, which I recommend everyone does, chances are if they're serious about your business, they will do a deal. And a lot of the time you can save yourself a bit of coin. So these are about 360, 370 Australian dollars, which works out to about $29 a point, thereabouts. Let me just double check that. So $370 I paid for them. We've got 12 units, so pretty much $30 a unit. So just to clarify, one point decoder from DCC Concepts is about $100. On top of that, it's about $10 for every additional solenoid that you have to do, and that's not including the the wiring and all the other miscellaneous stuff that you need. So your straight up hardware cost is $180. $180. That's in Australian. That's for a typical solenoid and DCC decoder setup, which is what I've got already. And you only get 8 outputs for one of those. So it's marginally more expensive, but I'd say they'd probably be about the same overall. Difference is you can isolate these units a lot easier than you can with a point decoder, because unless you've got hubs, you're going to be running a lot of wire underneath your table. So definitely, if the budget is there for you, this is a solution that I would ultimately recommend long term, only because it makes more sense realistically. So funny the things you learn after a sensible amount of time. But needless to say, the packaging is impressive. Each of these come in a separate packet, which is awesome. It means storage is going to be really easy. Accessories are great. So I'm going to do some work under the table. We'll fit one of these things up and I'll show you how easy it is to store one of these things, set it up on the ECOS, and we'll go from there. Okay, see you in a bit. Alright folks, we're back. So this is just going to be a real quick installation guide about how you go about getting these ready for your layout and then eventually installing them underneath the baseboard. So before we begin, every single one of these units comes with a nicely packed little accessories bag. So I'm just going to open that up and show you what needs to happen before you get to install this under the baseboard. So we just got this little sachet. Let's just open this up and remove the contents. Alright, don't do it why I do it, because you could always lose something and that's when you're in a real world of trouble. So the most important thing we've got to make sure we don't break is this little thing here, which is the blade. This goes up through the hole in the point motor and will eventually throw the point. The other important little thing is this thing here. This is the fulcrum piece. Okay, now you may not be able to see it on the camera, but there's 5 small holes, and I'm trying to get the camera to focus. There we go. So there's 5 small holes here, and you can position the rod through that to act as the pivot point for the actual rod. So you could have this offset, which answers my question about how do you have these multiple things side by side without them interfering with one another. So the answer is you change the fulcrum or the pivot point. So in this case, DCC Concepts supplies a small little plastic piece which you simply slot into the recess here. So your there we go, that's much better. Okay, so your blade will go in here. There's 2 holes, so the blade goes in the top, and there's a little fixing screw that goes into the bottom. I'll show you that in a sec. And this little piece here goes in like so. Simply slots in, and it's adjustable. So if you've got a really thick baseboard with plenty of material above where this fixes, you can adjust this all the way to the top, and that way the leverage is still the same effect as if it was all the way down here, or vice versa. Basically, the closer this is to the actual action down here, the more the bar is going to sway up the top. Alright, so just keep that in mind. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a small screw, and this thing is tiny, so just make sure you've got like a magnetic screwdriver. You can see there. So this little screw attaches the blade to the actual action, and we're just going to do that right now and show you how it's done. So I'd advise maybe taking this slot out just for now. We're going to put the blade in first, and we're just going to thread it through the slot. So for now I'm just going to chuck it through the middle for argument's sake. Of course I can always change this later. Alright, so you can see that's now through, and you can see what I'm talking about. So that, the further down it is, the more that lever will ultimately control and dictate the overall motion of that. There we go. The motion of this blade. So we just stick it into the top one, like so, and I'm just going to zoom in. Okay, so you can see here, so the blade goes into the top one and the little screw goes into the bottom one, and it's just light pressure to keep this thing from popping out like that. Okay, so if you maintain that, you should be a-okay. So we're just going to do that. We've got our little screw. I'm just going to put this down real quick. Locate the screw and make sure the blade stays in position, more importantly. And just as I said, light pressure. Line it up. Make sure you don't crush the blade, make sure the blade has the ability to move. Okay, now with that done, everything's in place, everything's fixed and ready to go. You can adjust this little slider as you need to when it gets under the board, but this is now ready to be installed under the baseboard. So we're just going to go under the baseboard and we'll install this unit, and I'll show you how it's done. Okay, we're back underneath the baseboard. You can see I've got the unit installed. There's no screws fixing it in at this point. We've just got the sticky vibration pad holding it in place, but as you can see, it's a really easy setup. Just those 2 red and black wires, which is a DC, in and out, negative and positive, just crimped onto the bus. Nothing major. So with that done, all we need to do now is just test to make sure this thing is a-okay. So it's this point right here. Now, as with everything, it's always a good idea to do this with no track power. So you can see here on the throttle, I've got no track power, so we're just going to turn that back on. Nice and easy. Green light on the throttle, really, really handy. Let's just see if we can get this thing to focus. There we go. Alright, so points. Now this particular point is main line number 17. Oh, that's easy. Alright, so we're on the points page. Now I'm going to show you how to set this thing up. Back under the table. Yeah. Switch. There it is. So you can see just to my left, there's the switch. So I just got to make sure it is in the right position. So at the moment it's in the run position. See there? Switch set. So I need to push it down just like that. Come back out. Zoom back out. Now let's just zoom in again on 17. There we go. ML17, which is that point. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be enough. Back under the table again. Just flick that back into the run position, and that's it. That's all you need to do to program these things. So let's just see if this has worked. So I'll try and get this in shot with the throttle. This is going to suck. Alright, maybe just move it back a bit. There we go. Okay, I just got to get this thing to focus on the controller so you can see that I'm... One second, it'll focus. There we go. Alright, so ML17, let's just see what happens. Alright, there was noise. Let's try that again. And again. Okay, so we need to do some alignment. So I'm just going to cut the video and we'll line this up and we'll try it again. But the important thing is the point motor is firing and it's responding to its new address. So I'm just going to realign this new tool and we'll get it back on video and show you it working. Back in a second. Okay, super easy fix. Just had to adjust that fulcrum point that I showed you before. So now if we push ML17, there we go, beautiful. Same again. Easy as that. Now I'll just quickly show you what had to be adjusted, and this is just what we showed you before in the video, which is well, just watching the mic on the camera. This little plastic piece here. So this just had to be brought down a bit closer to the action to get the fulcrum to move over a little bit more, and that's all there is to it. How easy is that? So the other thing is now I'm just going to wire up the frog point and frog polarity, but that's just very, very easy. Just follow the instructions, but that's how easy this little product is. So I'm going to be doing some more testing on this, but I think overall this is a huge success for me because it superly simplifies my very complex wiring arrangements. You can see, look at that atrocity down there, using the ADS-8SX. All those wires, just ugh, gross. So I'm going to be changing a few more of these points up along the top here, and that's going to be about it. So we'll do that and I'll get back to you with my conclusions. Okay, so it's just a little bit later. I've been playing around with the wiring and the placement of these new digital point motors, and there's a little thing that you need to do with these particular units to make them work as a crossover. So similar to what I have here, where there's a point here and there's a point further up there, you need to use a program which is listed in their instructions, and all you need to do is, as before, switch the run set switch to set and use the address 197, and what that does is it changes the throw direction of that motor. So in effect what that means is that you can orientate the actual unit any way you like. If we just get this to focus on the controller. So we're back with ML17, and we're just going to watch the points throw, and they both throw in different directions. So okay, so this one throws differently, that one throws differently. And just to show you what I'm talking about, so you get a nice uninterrupted throw through, and really easy and really simple to set and run that system up. Alright, so I've been playing around a little bit more with this point motor. I keep thinking it's a point decode. Technically it is, but it's not. It's a point motor. These little Cobalt IP digital units are pretty special. I really like them. Still more testing to be done, so you know, the opinion could change in 6 months, but we hopefully will not have to experience that. Really easy to install, which is always a big plus for me. The inclusion of these little clip terminals is an absolute bloody lifesaver. I mean, seriously, I can't begin to tell you the pain I've had to endure when installing solenoids and the older version of the accessory decoders underneath the table. It is honestly a hassle worth the extra cost. Now let's talk about the cost. Now I did say before that one of these is per dollar unit roughly the same as an accessory decoder and a solenoid. Now the advantage of the solenoid obviously is that if there's enough power coming out of the decoder that you can run multiple solenoids, and in turn you can run junctions on one output. So effectively with an 8 output accessory decoder like the DCC Concepts variants, you could get 16 solenoids fired simultaneously. In my experience, that's not always the case because it depends on the voltage going into the unit as well as the voltage going out of the unit. So you've got to take that with a huge grain of salt. In terms of reliability, now this is the thing I can't answer just yet because I've only just got these things. I can't really determine if they are emphatically reliable as yet. That's something that I'll probably come to a conclusion in about 6 months' time when I've had these for enough of a period where I can find out if there are any little niggling problems. From what I can tell from the material that I've read, from the literature that I've reviewed, there aren't too many issues with these things overall. Do they make noise? They do make a little bit more noise than the solenoids, but you know what, the noise that they make is minimal and they're very smooth actions. The points change over a lot slower than the solenoids, so keep that in mind if that's something that concerns you. But overall, considering what you get in that little package, it's a really impressive little piece of kit. I would recommend buying it if the budget allows for it, because in my experience to date, if you can simplify the whole DCC process by eliminating as many problems as you can with wiring and short circuits and all sorts of crap like that, pay the extra money and get the hardware that supports that. And this is just one example of that. You know, it's the same with the ESU ECOS. If you want to get a good base station, get something like a Z21 or an ECOS, or even some of the other German or even the Digitrax stuff. It's all good, but you need to pay the money. And that's just one of those things. If you want a reliable layout, you are going to have to spend the money on the hardware to ensure that it runs reliably. You wouldn't put a budget decoder in your locomotive, so you shouldn't use cheap DCC hardware by the same vein. Overall, these are a 9 out of 10 without a doubt to date. A little bit fiddly getting some of the attachments on, but overall installing it really easy. The programming is a little bit complicated sometimes. I mean, even for me as an engineer, it's a little bit tiring when you've got to deal with a manual that's like a frickin' paper accordion. And you know, the information I was looking for is in very small print right up in this section of the manual. So if I'm being honest, I know DCC Concepts is conscious about their packaging and the aesthetic of their products, and that's fine, but I think overall the manuals probably need to be updated to a slightly more legible and probably user-friendly manual with a few more diagrams and things like that. just my 2 cents. Obviously you're welcome to your own opinion, and if you feel that is the case, please let me know in the comments below. Now moving forward, I'm going to do some more testing on these. Obviously, in terms of reliability, I can't give a definite answer just yet, because that's something that's going to have to happen in 6 months' time when I've had some serious running in done, and you know, things like it gets hotter here and the humidity starts to become a factor. So we'll see how these things perform in 6 months, and if they're still as good as they were out of the box, then I'd still say it'd be a 9 out of 10. But for the meantime, I really would recommend these. The extra cost is a factor, but it's a factor worth considering. And believe me, DCC is a really enjoyable thing when it's done right, but it needs to be done right, and it needs to be done with proper gear. If you do it with the cheap stuff, it's a novelty, but if you do it for a model railway like what I'm doing and what many of you are doing, then it's worth the extra cost. So don't skimp. Definitely look at investing in the better hardware. Now, before I go, obviously I have to thank all of you for your patience, for putting up with my absence for the last few months, and for that I thank you all. And I also have to thank all the new subscribers again, all 530 of you I think it is at last count. Thank you very much for your continued support. Now, in terms of videos moving forward, this is something that I just don't know, because every weekend is at this point in time a big unknown. I just had a free day today, so I thought I'd do up a video. But hopefully I can keep it and maintain it moving forward to a video a month. Some of the stuff coming up, I'm finally going to reveal the prototype of the Eurostar project, so that's coming in the next video, hopefully, because all the parts have finally arrived. So I've got the motors, I've got the motor housings, and I've got the new assemblies all done up. I just need to assemble them, test them, and then put it to film, edit it, and do all that lovely stuff. The layout, well, the layout hasn't really changed because I haven't done any work on it, but I will do another update. There's been a few minor changes to the overall landscape of it, and that'll be another video. Don't tend to do so well those videos, so if you're more than welcome to support the layout update videos, check out the 2 earlier ones. Obviously I love your feedback, guys, so keep that coming. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell just so you keep updated on everything going on here at Castle Hill. So with that said, until next time, thank you very much for watching. Happy model railroading. Catch you later.